Good morning, guys. Welcome to another fabulous episode of Exit Strategies Radio Show. Hey, I'm your host, Cole and J. Millett, broker and owner of Exit Realty Group in beautiful North Charleston, South Carolina. Hey, if this is your first time listening to this show, you, sir, or ma'am, are in for a treat. Our mission here is very simple, very simple. That is to empower our community through financial literacy and real estate education, guys. We are legacy building. That is what we do. So today, guys, is no different than what we've been doing. We've been working you, we've been putting you through your paces, we've been bringing massive amounts of information, amazing guests to the show to share with you various niches, various aspects of the real estate industry. And today is no different. We're very humble to have with us today none other than Trystan McNeill, who is a commercial broker in the Charlotte market, servicing North Carolina, South Carolina, as well as Georgia. Tristan, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Corey. Appreciate you having me on the show. I'm excited to be here and, look forward to our conversation.
Well, look here, same here. So let's just jump straight into it. If you don't mind, give our listeners the high level overview of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I'm Tristan McNeill. My family is originally from Fayetteville, North Carolina. I've been in Charlotte since 2008. So I started real estate in 2018. And prior to that, I was in the risk management and compliance space within financial services. So originally graduated from UNC Charlotte in 2012. Like most people, when I graduated, mindset was on let me graduate, get a good paying job, let me start my career and start climbing the corporate ladder. And so, one of the things that early on in my career, probably about a year or two into it, I realized that my goals and my dreams didn't necessarily align with my salary. And that necessarily doesn't mean I was money chasing, but what I realized early on that the small salary bumps didn't align with kind of my impatient ways and trying to kind of bridge and break the financial gap and wealth gap for myself and people around me. So, but it took me a while to kind of get an idea of what I wanted to do because I was still in that mindset of thinking, all right, well, if I switch jobs from what I've heard, I can increase my salary. But the problem with that was I still lacked the experience. So, as I was going through that, a lot of times at the end of the year or even during like mid-year reviews, folks
Hmm.
would ask, like, your manager would say, hey, what is your goals for the year? Or where are you trying to be in the next 3, 5 years? Where do you see yourself in the company? And I never really had an answer for that. And it was terrible because somebody like, what are your career goals? I was like, I don't know. I don't have any. For me, it was let me figure out how can I move up the ladder quickly and as fast as possible. So I did that through switching companies a couple times. I've always been fortunate to have networked and known somebody. I used to tell people I was in the business of problem solving, and technically I
Hmm.
still am. But even with that, you become good at problem solving in the financial services space, you'll always end up having a job. So
Hmm.
me at the end of about, what was it, 2016, 2017, I was working at a company and I just wasn't happy. And it wasn't necessarily because I wasn't good at what I did. It was just the environment, the people around it, and that just wasn't a good fit. So at the end of that year, I quit. I quit my job and end up converting myself into a consultant and started doing contract consulting in the same industry. But then, like, as I did it for the first 3 to 4 months, I was like, I'm still not getting that fulfillment. And I'm like, what did I have the energy around? And it was real estate. So that led me to taking my real estate exam in 2018. I ended up actually failing the first time around, had to retake the class. And most people would have been discouraged and like, you know what, I'm just not going to do this. It's not for me. I literally, within 15 minutes of finding out that I failed the class, re-registered for another class and was back in class the following week. And from there, I dedicated my summer of 2018 because I was doing evening classes when I first started. Dedicated 8 weeks, basically 2 months of Saturday and Sundays, 8 to 5, to my real estate class. End up passing that, got my license in October 2018, and the rest is history. So I started off in the residential space for a couple years. Even when I got my license, I knew that I wanted to be in commercial. It was different. I knew there were challenges lied ahead of it, but ultimately I kind of kept that eye sight. I didn't know what I wanted to do in the commercial space, but ultimately, because I was still in brokerage on the residential side, very quickly. They say it still takes you about 3 to 5 years in the commercial space to really get your gears going. And I mean, I've noticed that extremely from different aspects or another. But once you kind of get to know what you're doing, then it's just a matter of putting things into practice. So that's, I know that was probably a little longer than what you guys normally would, I would say, take on
No
as somewhat
worries.
seriously. But I always like to try to give the full background.
So you touched on a few things in there, and I don't want to state them long, but I'm always sensitive to mindsets, the mindset of someone who finds greater success. You had a failure, and technically it wasn't a failure, it was just part of the journey. But you didn't allow that to stop you and hinder you. We have and see people oftentimes that if it don't work the first time, they're done, but they may not have been prepared, or maybe they were being tested to see if they would have the fortitude to continue on. And you immediately picked it up and went right back. You fell off the bicycle, but hold on, I'm gonna ride this sucker. And you went and got back right back on it and went again and kept going. So kudos to you. And that's a mindset that we talk about here often, what matters for success. But let's get back and continue forward on this vein, because you work in commercial real estate and we have a mindset of abundance here in the show. We don't have limiting beliefs. For our listeners that have them, those are the ones that we put in the chokehold about every week about what we talk about, because we always want to encourage people and move people forward. So, the commercial space, let's talk about that. So, give us, if you could, what is your outlook? Like, for example, in
Mhm.
the local market, the Charleston area, and other markets in our state are like this as well. We can drive by a corner and there's nothing there. We come back that afternoon after we leave work, and there's a building halfway framed in a date. The next day, they got a parking lot paved, and the day after that, there's a grand opening ribbon out front. Seemingly, it's going in so quickly. What do you foresee in the commercial space over the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, absolutely. So with commercial, it's going to be asset class based, right? So I try not to get too technical, but also try to give a simplified answer. Charleston's a great market. Like I said, I originated out of the Charlotte market, but I work across three different states and basically the southern region. When it comes to the office side of things, right? I just read an article earlier today where, like in New York, for example, that you have a lot of large conglomerates that are just selling off spaces at a deeply discounted rate, and it's
Hmm.
because of the debt that they have on the building. So when you talk about any asset class really that has a lot of debt or debt they just can't move, or you have notes coming up. So for example, somebody took a note in 2018, now it's 2023, outside of COVID, you would either think you're going to elevate or de-elevate. So you have a
Hmm.
lot of people that weren't able to cash flow as high as they expected, and nobody expected COVID, right? So that's a challenge there, and it has a direct impact on the market. So you have all these people that are going to default, but then you also have a lot of people that are also looking to purchase, but they're not going to purchase because the rates are too high for them to
Hmm.
be able to cash flow in the future. So you have that challenge ahead. But when you have like certain thriving markets where you still have, I think here in Charlotte, 140 something people moving here a day, that money that's coming to the city is going to stimulate the economy. So that's going to encourage people to want to go to work. That's going to encourage small businesses to open up that retail space. It's going to encourage developers to continue building those apartments for multifamily living, because again, you have 140 some people moving here. They got to be somewhere, right?
Hmm.
So you could probably look out the window from my office, my house, and you could probably point out every apartment complex that's going up within a 1 to 3 mile radius, right? The retrading or the disposition in sales, it's slowed down a little bit, but again, that has everything to do with the rate. So you got some people that will see, you know what, let me see if I can ride this thing out and maybe sell it later on, you know, in the year, or vice versa. You have some people that need to sell now, and those need to sell now people could be folks that are retiring. Again, it could be folks that, you know, I bought this building in 2020 thinking that I was going to make a killing, realized that I wasn't, and it's not performing in the way that I need to, right? So I need to exit, you know, my
Hmm.
position. But you know, I think a lot of people are very optimistic. I was sitting in a event hosted by CoStar the week before last, and as you know, Bed Bath and Beyond and like Bye Bye Baby and all of them, they've hit their bankruptcy. So in about a couple months or so, if not less, most of their stores are going to be vacant. And you would think, you know, outside looking in, oh man, that's a lot of square footage. They're going to sit. That's 20, 30,000 square feet. Well, when you're engulfed in the industry, I've heard that there are people that are waiting for those buildings to become vacant, like they are ready to take them over.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about an abundance mindset, I know plenty of people that don't believe in recessions. They don't believe in down markets. They just believe in opportunities. So,
Uh-huh.
but it also takes a strong mindset and a will to say, you know what, let me figure out how do I get creative, right? So when like for example, when sales are down, it may be you have all these new businesses and tenants or landlords that need help filling their space, or small businesses that need to get off the ground and need tenancy. So
Mhm.
there's good money and tenancy as well, especially when someone's selling, well, someone's needing a 5 to 10 year lease for a great concept. So
So it's interesting that you should say that. We look at this. Well, matter of fact, I'm gonna take you back to something just before you said what I was going to focus on, which is I have a client of mine that says this thing, Tristan. He says business is slow for slow-minded people. And that's a philosophy that I have to carry because oftentimes we'll make business slow. We'll complain, we'll gripe, we'll do all these other things. We'll complain about a market, this or that, in the third. And what happens is in that complaint, we in turn shut ourselves out from that market.
very
So all
true.
the people that's out here complaining about home ownership prices or real estate prices and giving all these gripes and complaints about it, those people are shutting themselves out from the market. Those are the people that are not able to buy or buying in this market because they're shutting themselves out. Those who embrace the market, okay, well, look, it's always a great time for us to own real estate. It's always a great time for this. Yes, there may be a time that's better, but it's always a great time for us to get into the market. Those people will continue to do business, continue to be in the market. So, like you said, this person is going out of business. They're coming out of these spaces and they're creating opportunities. But one person is going to look at it and say, "Oh gosh, the economy is tanking. Such and such is going out of business. They're going bankrupt." Another person is going to say, "Oh, what? Really? Word? Oh shoot,
Right.
your building about to be open. Let's go get it." And that is all mindset. That is all mindset. So it's interesting that you should share that, for our listeners. Now, do you work with first time investors in commercial space?
Do you want something more? More meaningful moments, opportunities, deeper relationships, and memorable experiences? Do you want to make a difference? If you said yes, a career in real estate could be the opportunity you're looking for. Guiding people through one of the most important decisions they'll ever make, the purchase or sale of their home, can be both rewarding and lucrative. Exit Realty's revolutionary compensation model, training, and technology provide you with the tools you need to start and build your successful real estate career. Call me today, Robin Collins, ROBYN Collins with Red Robin Homes at 843-557-5003. Again, that's 843-557-5003. Or visit me at redrobinhomes.com/join-exit and make your exit today.
I do. I do. Actually, I like working with first time investors, especially because they're green and they don't have a preconceived notion or bias on what they're going to buy or how they're going to operate. So they really look at us as consultants opposed to brokers. So, I tell people we wear a lot of hats. So we're consultants, advisors, brokers,
Mhm.
and even from a couple people that I mentor, I've told them like this: of like, the brokering part's easy. And again, that might seem facetious, but that's just my opinion. The brokering part's easy. The hard part is learning the business and economics of how things operate. So I
Mhm.
tell a lot of people, especially first time investors, is like, I don't think like the typical broker. I think like an investor, because at the end of the day, I have to know what fits your style, right? And so when the first time I broke, actually this happened last week, a guy and his wife, they historically have invested in single family properties. They run a couple businesses, they're entrepreneurs, etc. And they're like, you know what, we're ready to move into the multifamily space. Even though they've been in real estate investment, they were completely green to multifamily,
Mhm.
how the process works, how to seek funding, etc. So we walked through that process and it was an eye opener for them. And I think a lot of times you have a lot of people who may not educate somebody on it or feel like it's a waste of time. The way I look at it is, if I can educate somebody in the process, that gives me a stronger chance that when they follow up or when I follow up, that they would want to work with us. Or if I've given them homework per se, which is either, do some research. And in some cases, people may not know what they want their return on their investment to be. So, hey, come up with your game plan, come up with your business plan, figure out what your ideal budget is. Here's some people to talk with, here's some resources to follow. Let's have a follow up conversation in a couple of weeks to kind of let me know where you're at and what you've decided. That's the best way, I can assist a new investor opposed to someone saying, hey, you know what? I'm looking at trying to buy this multifamily property with this many units. Send me what you got. Because it's
Mm.
not always about sending me what you got. And especially on the commercial side, our relationships that we build with our clients are a little bit more particular in really understanding their needs and the way that we can best service them.
And that's very fair. Oftentimes, in what I just heard you say, is that you want to get to know their needs, their goals, their objectives, so you can help them meet them. So many in the profession, in the industry, just order takers. Hey, I'm looking for this, or I want this. Well, you send it to them, and then you find out later that that's really not what they needed or what they wanted, because they're not making a move. So you're trying to figure out, well, what are you trying to accomplish? So walking people through that process to understand, the objective, so that you can help them the best way. Most people don't realize that, like, when you get into on the commercial side, a multifamily is, when you get greater than 4 units,
Oh yeah,
that's where that goes. So that whole element, that whole piece there that people miss is
right.
when we go from residential to commercial.
Yeah, and even in that standpoint, it's like we take it a step further. So, it depends on the investor, right? So sometimes you have even first time investors that may or may not come from money, but like someone who, basically had to get it out the mud and build up their portfolio. A lot of times they consider that multifamily, less than 4 units, or, they say they have a lower budget and this doesn't make anybody one less person or another. Will say, hey, I got 300K and I'm trying to get, this duplex or 3 to 5 units. Then we have a whole different conversation and explain to what that process looks like. Because again, and well, and a good thing they've increased the FHA limits, but if it's less than 4 units, you're more than likely going to have to get a residential loan, right?
Mhm,
Well, if it's over 4 units, then you're either looking at a commercial loan or a bridge loan or a jumbo loan. But the
mhm,
problem there lies that if it's not over $1 million, then that's where the conventional financing becomes a little tricky. So
mhm,
most commercial lenders are looking for that sweet spot because it reduces the risk at $1 million plus. And then
mhm,
even then, like I try to be as transparent as possible with clients. I'm like, look, even if it's your first time or not, if you're trying to build a relationship with a new bank or a new lender, private money, whatever the case may be, you just need to know that you're looking at 20 to 30% to put
mhm,
down. So, we'll make it easy for you. $1 million, you need 200 to 300K liquid. It doesn't have to
mhm,
be your money. It could be somebody else's money. And
mhm,
that's the beautiful thing about commercial investing is you can get money from everywhere. At the end
mhm,
of the day, when it comes down to closing table, they just want to know cash in the bank. On the residential side, your underwriter is going to get mad if you get 3 smoothies from Tropical Cafe. It's like, why did you spend this money? We're going to have to reduce your mortgage by $100. Like that's wild, right? So I think that's the cool thing about commercial. And it's like it doesn't have a timeline, right? It's
mhm,
all about the deal flow. It's about the property. The property speaks for itself, and any hot asset's going to speak on it. Like my partner and I, he just listed a 5 unit out here in Concord, North Carolina, and we probably posted it about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. We've already
mhm,
had 10 people calling, right?
mhm,
So when you put out a good product, then they'll call. And we've taken on bad listings, and I'm not gonna call them bad listings. We've taken on opportunities where we've learned lessons, like kind of having that abundance mindset. It's just like you never know what'll come of it. And but at the same time, I think our honesty and transparency with our clients goes a long way, where we don't promise them anything when we
mhm,
list it. Like we just show them the track record and say, hey, look, this is what we've done. This is our track record. Who we work with. We'll put it
mhm,
in front of our investors and see what happens.
mhm,
And we tell pretty much everybody the same thing. The market will let us know what's going to happen within the first
mhm,
week that it's listed. We'll know if
mhm,
it's too high. We know if it has too much deferred maintenance. We know
mhm,
if it's a desirable asset, a desirable area. We may learn things. And this is where it also, from our standpoint, is you also have to be truthful with us as well. Tell us everything about this property before we list it, because we find out things in between that's not going to help anybody. So
true indeed. And there's a reasonable amount of that. They don't tell you what you need to know, and you find out later
oh
what
yeah,
you should know. So that is most certainly one of the things. Tristan, I call it my mic drop question, but before we get to it, tell our listeners how they can get in contact with you, how they can explore getting into, investing in commercial real estate. Where can they reach you at?
yeah, absolutely. So if you look me up on LinkedIn, it's my first and last name. So Trystan McNeill, TrystanMcNeill. Very easy to find. On Instagram, it's Tristan the Broker. So my first name and it's one word, essentially the broker. Pretty easy to contact. I'm very accessible. And then same thing on Facebook. I don't really get on Facebook as much, but if you go to my LinkedIn or my Instagram, I have a link tree that has direct access as well. So
Okay, perfect. So my mic drop question, I ask our guests this question because as you gain more experience in the business, you hit these pivotal moments that you just kind of look and say, well, if I'd have known this back then, I would have been over yonder. So for you, what is the thing or those things that you wish that you would have learned anew in the very beginning that you know now that would have helped you be much further in the business and the industry than we are currently?
that's a good question.
That's a
Uh,
profound one.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's probably a couple things, right? So the one thing I knew but didn't know the extent of
Hmm.
was how in the commercial space, income generating properties play a big factor into how it moves the market. And what I
Hmm.
mean by that is I knew that when I came in, I needed to know the numbers. So like I'm good at math, but I need to know how to calculate equations,
Hmm.
how to tell somebody the value and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
a lot of times, just like anybody in a new position, you're always giddy about, let me get a client, let me get a client, let me get a client.
Hmm.
So I was able to generate some business early on, but where I struggled was I wasn't able to speak the numbers off the top of my head. So,
Hmm.
I made those mistakes early on to the point where it was like, okay, I would go back and look at like, what did I do wrong? Not necessarily what I do wrong, but how can I improve my next conversation?
Hmm.
And so I passed that along to newer brokers when they come into the business of, hey, I know that we all got to make money. We got to put food on the table. We got to do this, that, and the third. But learn the business first. Take the first 6 months, take your year to learn the business. If you got to still maintain your job, do so. Because I did that, and I still do some of that on the side now. But still, you need to have that income coming in so that way you don't feel the level of stress.
Hmm.
And then the other thing is do a formalized sales training.
Hmm.
And I've done a couple now, but I'm in the process of trying to figure out one that like a 3-day sales conference, 4-day sales conference to where I can really engulf in that. Because I think a lot of times we learn the business of real estate and it's like, hey, do this or this is how you attract clients and stuff like that. But a lot of us, maybe this is a second career or something like that. We never actually get the sales training piece, right? You may read a book on sales, you may read some articles or listen to a couple videos, but you actually never go around other salespeople
Hmm.
that are essentially doing the same thing to generate income and clients, but it's like be around that environment. So that's the one thing that I wish somebody would have told me or I wish I'd have done. It's like, hey, go to sales training. So
Hmm. Okay, good. I appreciate that.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Tristan, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you having me.
You're quite welcome. Thank you so much because I know you're busy, my man. So I appreciate it. Our listeners, guys, y'all got some nuggets today. So we hope, we trust, we pray that you will work to implement those in your exercise of the pursuit of the American dream. That you will focus on growth, and growth requires investment so that you will see the results, the fruition, if you will, of your efforts. Tristan is someone that you guys can contact. So, again, one last time, Tristan, again, thank you for being a part of the Exit Strategies Radio Show family, being on with us today. For our listeners, y'all know how I feel. Y'all know what I say. We're going to put the two of those things together and we're going to say this thing to you this way, which is I love you. I love you. I love you. and we're going to see you guys out there in those streets.